Hello everybody. Today I'm going to talk about the human rights. Actually, before we go to the human rights, the rule of law is not protected. If the rule of law is not protected in any country, democracy cannot be protected either, right? And also that requires regular vigilance to ensure that the rule of law is not violated. So what is this mechanism? This mechanism is the human rights. This is human rights, and the principle of rule of law has certain normative values. Normative values: freedom, equality, human dignity, and the tolerance are such normative values. So let's go to the human rights. Actually, when it comes to the human rights, this is very important, super important. Okay, I'll explain you what is human rights, how it's gonna be useful for our day-to-day life, right? In every government, human rights are the moral entitlements that human beings should enjoy in order to enable all human beings to live in a complete life, right? Happy life. The full development of the personality, actually, and the enjoyment of the social justice. Human beings are born with those moral rights. Okay, the rights to life, food, conscience, and personal dignity. Those are the inherited. They inherited by the birth. At birth, when they are birthed, from the born, they have it, those things. And according to the liberal thinkers, human rights are an important for social existence of human beings, as oxygen is for their biological existence. And human rights are unusual rights to the human beings and entitled to them because they are human beings, right? Therefore, the human rights are inseparable from human beings, inseparable from the human beings, and human beings are entitled to them without any discrimination, and also they are equal to all. Violation of all human rights causes a grave injustice in every society, right? And when it comes to the human rights are not actually invented by anyone, right? They are actually discovered because of they were already there, hidden and suppressed. That's how it goes. But in the 17th century, when we go, if you go to the 17th century, the history of the modern theory of human rights actually does not go back to beyond the 17th century. They were the first discovered during the 17th century at the Renaissance time. Again, come to the Renaissance, right? The pre-modern societies, without fear, the labor and dominated by the systems of slavery, right? Also, because caste suppression and as well arbitrary and authority of the what you call monarchy, the monarchy. Human rights remain suppressed, actually. However, with the emergence of the free labor, right? Free labor and circular education, and the development of the literacy and the printing and conditions also developed to enable and spread of the ideas of the human rights. Human beings' right hands had rights, actually. That's how it goes, right? And the change first occurred in the England. Everything is England, UK, where the society was making the tensions from the feudalism and the capitalism, right? And the intellectual challenges at that time to feudal political and social power to began to develop at that time. It was begun to develop, but it is not fully developed. until the 19th century, until the first part of the 19th century, right? The new questions such as the following need to be asked: should the king have power over the people's life and property, and should that power is restricted? Is it against to this uh, backdrop that the idea of common rights of the people began to develop? John Locke named the common rights of natural rights, and he considered these human rights developed. Uh, but John Locke, however, is intimidated and limited of these rights of life and liberty of the property, liberty and property. Right? The concepts of the human rights later developed through the liberal and socialist and political thoughts, right? And when it comes to the contemporary conception of the human rights, consists civil and political and social rights, right? When it comes to the limited government, right? The concept of the limited government is a major premise in democratic governance, major province of the democratic governance. So its basic meaning that the government or the rulers is not entitled and unlimited powers, that their powers in the fact limited, right? The aim of limited government is the protection and the liberal principles of individual freedom. So theoretically, the basis of the concepts of the limited government, right? And as the developed in the liberal body, liberal political philosophy is following. And since the state power has been inherited capacity to the arbitrarily accuse, abused, arbitrarily abuse, such as the way as deny the people's rights. No, you don't have rights. You don't have rights. Right? Their rights and liberties. Right? Only way to protect the people's rights is the liberty, is the imposition of limits on the powers of the government. That's how it goes, right? The concepts of limited government and enables the rule of law and checks and balances and constitutional limits on the powers of the government and institutions, as well as person who represented the government authority, right? The John Locke and the Montesquieu. I talked about the Montesquieu before, and the two major political philosophers who developed the liberal democratic concepts called the limited government, right? And after that, at the same time, the old principle, the government of law is not the men. Government of law, not of men. Capture of this essence of the doctrine of limited government, as we learned in these lessons, liberalism, right? And it was the John Locke who the first elaborated the doctrine of the limited government that time. Right? To recall the discussion, Locke wanted to develop a system of parliamentary government, parliamentary body, as well as the alternative arbitrary rules of the kings under the monarchy. And while doing so, he reinterpreted the myths of the social contract. The Locke's model of the parliamentary government legislation, as well as it was the key institution of government representing and the sovereignty and of the people. However, the legislature powers are limited by the conditions of the social contract between the rules and the people, right? And the main thing, if you think, the main objective of the social contract was at that time protection of life, liberty, property of the people. Thus, the government has no authority to violate the fundamental commitment. So if it does, people have right to recall the government and elect a new one. And later on, in the further evolution of the theory and the practices of the democratic governance, the doctrine of limited government developed in the following key components, right? Delegated authority, trusteeship, and conditionality, right? Conditionality and a limited term. Limited term is the government has a limited term, right? Rule of law and separation of powers and checks and the balances, right? Free and fair elections also, right? These are the main things, right? And delegated authority, right? Follow. It is elected in a new one, in fundamental committee, right? And delegated authority means authority of the government which is derived from people, from the people, right? The power of the government is only delegated power. It means that the people at free and fair elections authorize power of the government. And trusteeship and conditionality. When it comes to the trusteeship and the conditionality, the powers of the rules are conditional. That is conditional to the trust and the people who have expressed when they are elected them. Right? What happened to say Sheikh Hasina, for example? The core principle of the trust is the political power would not be used arbitrarily and denied by the people of their rights and liberties, right? And rulers has to be very careful and they're expected to behave within the limit of that trust, right? When it comes to the limited term, also the government, the political body, government is elected in limited period of office, and usually for the term of 4 years or 5 years. No government has legal or moral right to exceed the terms if limited without renewing its mandate. Right? So, from the people, mandate from the people actually. People is who are the one who give the power to the government, and we are the people. We have the rights, right? This also prevent the rulers beginning to think that they are not only the government but they are also the state. And this the third limits on elected government ensure that the democratic principle of separating government from the state. Right? Rule of law. When it comes to the rule of law defines the legal limits within which the government exercise its authority. Right? And separation of power. The doctrine seeks to prevent concentration of the state power at the hands of any branch of government, and legislative and executive, judicial, right? Checks and the balances. The aim of the checks and the balances is the prevention of one branch of government from monopolizing powers and arbitrary manner. And we are talking about the free and fair elections in next day. See you in another great video. Bye bye.